Steve, maybe you and I can just have a little bit of a chat about what the markets have been like, for especially for precious metals. It's been, an exciting last few, obviously an exciting year, but more specifically the last few months as we see, the gold sector consolidate. We just thought it'd be a good opportunity to, to talk about Cassiar with you, with the Asian-based investors, which we haven't done actually in quite a little bit. It's been a few years since you've been here in Hong Kong, Steve, and a lot of people joining the call are people that you would have met when you used to come a little bit more often.
I'm going to come back, Jorge. The last trip I made was January 2020, before the pandemic.
Correct.
But I'm going to make a trip. We've got some investments in South Korea, and I've got some reasons to go to Tokyo. So I'm going to come and see my good friend Jorge.
Absolutely.
And catch up with you.
Yeah, and it's just been the market also changed dramatically here in Asia, specifically here in Hong Kong. We've had an incredible amount of IPOs. The whole thing sort of started with I don't know if you saw in the news, Sujin spin out all their gold assets into a new Hong Kong company, and it was one of the most successful IPOs we've had in Hong Kong in many years. They raised over $1 billion. Rumor is that they were something like 20 times oversubscribed, and the stock is traded incredibly well. So on the back of that, there's been a number of IPOs. Some of the people in the call are also in Singapore and in Australia, and again those two places also with very much a renewed interest in gold. So we're about 5 minutes into the agreed hour. So let's start the conversation, and maybe just to welcome everybody and give you a little bit of context for the call. My name is Jorge Ramiro. I'm based in Hong Kong, and I run an outfit called Emerging Markets Capital that focuses narrowly on gold and silver equities. And Cassiar Gold is a company that we've been involved from day one. And we're lucky today to be joined by Steve Letwin, who is the chairman of Cassiar Gold. And Steve is somebody who's had an incredibly successful career in the extractive industry, in both gold and oil and gas. He came from Enbridge to run IAMGOLD. IAMGOLD, of course, a company that many of you will be familiar, one of the mid-tier producers, who's had an incredible run, a lot of it on the back of the great work that Steve did there. And now Steve very much involved with Cassiar as the chairman of the company. So Steve, thank you very much for joining the call. We wanted to start the conversation by seeing if you would be willing to share with us a little bit of your background, maybe given this call is specifically for Asian investors. Maybe if you don't mind sharing a little bit of your background with Asia, what you've done here before, and then after that we'll speak a little bit about your views on the current market. But if you don't mind sharing a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, absolutely, Jorge, and thank you, by the way, for organizing this. My background is extensive, as you mentioned. I started my career with Procter & Gamble in finance. I'm a chartered professional accountant, and I have an MBA in finance. I have an advanced management degree from Harvard. I really got familiar with Hong Kong when I was involved in selling an oil and gas company to 5 very wealthy Hong Kong residents: Chen Yutong, Li Shaoqi, Stanley Ho. And I worked very closely with them in the 90s and very successfully. I fell in love with Hong Kong, spent a lot of time in Hong Kong, and moved from that particular assignment to become Chief Financial Officer of TransCanada Pipelines. And then went on, as you mentioned, to Enbridge, where I spent 12 years as chief operating officer. I ran the U.S. operations and international. So I spent a lot of time in South America and in Europe and Asia. And so very, comprehensive career, as you say, in the extraction side of the business. And then I made a complete career change in 2010, at the end of 2010. I retired successfully from Enbridge and I went to lead IAMGOLD. And IAMGOLD at the time had some major challenges, and we were able to, with a great team, turn things around at IAMGOLD. We purchased what became the Côté Gold Mine in 2012. And we basically moved that to one of the most successful mines in Canadian history. As you know, the shares of IAMGOLD have moved from sub $2 to Canadian to north of $30 Canadian. A lot of people made a lot of money. I'm really happy about it. And the team at IAMGOLD, the CEO, Renaud Adams, has done a phenomenal job. And prior to that, Gord Stoddart and his team did a great job putting together. So a real succession of leaders there that have done a great job. But and as you know, my theme is I didn't take any of my bonuses in cash. I took them in shares. So I was the largest independent shareholder of IAMGOLD. I was one of the largest independent shareholders of Enbridge, and I am the largest independent shareholder of Cassiar. So I have a real big belief, Jorge, in having skin in the game. And I have never sold a share of Cassiar. And I've been very blessed in that I held on to my IAMGOLD shares and reaped the benefits of what, as you say, a gold price that went from $1,800 to $5,500. So I've been blessed. I've been very fortunate. And I now run a company called Mancal. It's the Mannix family here in Western Canada. We were fortunate last week to be named the best managed private company in Canada. So we were in Toronto for that award. It's been a good 6 years, but I'm very active in the mining space, Jorge. I miss seeing you over there in Hong Kong, but I really appreciate the fact you took the time to connect with me with Cassiar. Thank you.
No, absolutely. As you're talking about IAMGOLD, I remember I met you around 2014 here in Hong Kong. And at the time, it was, as many of you will remember in the call as well, it was a difficult time for the mining industry. And you were coming on a relatively recent acquisition of Côté Gold. And, at the time you had drawn some criticism because, like, it's a low grade deposit. It's, are you going to get a permit? It was a time where actually the majority of companies around the world in the gold space were struggling. And I remember soon after you came, gold hit a low of like $1,000 per ounce.
800.
And then 800, yeah, that's right. And it's kind of interesting to see, I always think of all, now with the benefit of looking back, as you were saying, what an incredible story with Côté. And part of the lesson is you find a resource that has good infrastructure, that has size, and it's in a tier 1 jurisdiction. And then yes, you have to weather all the ups and downs that are particular to the cycle, but the reward is just incredible. I think Côté is now producing something like 500,000 ounces of gold a year.
That's right.
I wanted to ask you, Steve, just in what attracted you about Cassiar, and sort of going back to that theme of, you take, that's probably for all of us as investors and entrepreneurs, we're in here because, you see a project that, that has a low valuation. Right now, Cassiar Gold has approximately 75 million market cap. And then, what do you, how do you go from there to to a success story like Cote IAMGOLD? So I don't know if you maybe could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. I mean, in 2012, when we purchased it, it was called Trelawney, and it's right off Highway 144 between Sudbury and Timmins. And somebody in the Netherlands really didn't like it. They set up a website called firesteveletwin.com. And, my daughters were horrified by this. I just come off of 12 unbelievable years at Enbridge, very successful, grew the company like 500 times. It was kind of a hard on the old, hard on the old ego. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of similarity between Cote and Cassiar. When I saw Cote for the first time, you literally, and you've been to Cote, you drive off the highway and you're at the site. So there were no issues around security. At IAMGOLD, we had many assets in West Africa, and the challenge was security, remoteness, power, all of that. When I saw this deposit, I saw that the fact that all the roads were there, about 200 kilometers of roads, the power lines were there, they had a camp there already, and only about 1.7 million ounces that were sort of inferred, very similar to Cassiar in that respect. And I just said to myself, I believe that given the history of this deposit, if we can increase the reserves, if we can increase the value by drilling, the fact that all the infrastructure is there, the access is very, very significant, positive, we can make this work. I worked with the First Nations, the Matagami First Nations, the Flying Post. We got an IBA in place with people like Ben Little and Steve Crozier helping tremendously. And we set it up for success. And thanks to people like Craig McDougall and Gord Stoddard, we moved that resource up 600%. And, that's why it became such a successful asset. I went over to Tokyo, and you were part of this, thank you. And Sumitomo Corporation put 400 million US into IAMGOLD, into Cote, and made it a tremendous success. One of the best success stories, I think, in North America when it comes to gold. And Cassiar, I'll just tell you, is almost identical. Off Highway 37, Northeast BC, you drive off the highway, there's 59,000 hectares of property that we have control over, with $100 million of infrastructure that was invested in 2008, 2009. And we have 170 kilometers of roadway, a core shack, a power source, a camp, and we didn't have to spend any money that we raised on any of that infrastructure, identical to what we did at Cote. So any of the money we raised, Jorge, and again, you were part of that success, we were able to put in the ground. So, 95% of our drill holes have found gold at Cassiar. 95%. So we now have about 2.5 million ounces, 500,000 of which are measured and indicated, and 1.9, almost 2 million ounces of inferred. And we're looking at grades around the measured and indicated of about 1.5 grams, and on the inferred of just less than 1 gram. And it's a very shallow deposit with virtually no overburden. So we are just seeing unbelievable success at Cassiar in terms of monetizing what was a tremendous deal for us. That $100 million of infrastructure, we literally got for $1 million. And as we look forward, the leverage is incredible. And as Rick Rule says, and he said to me, Steve, what you did at Cote was incredible. You showed investors a pathway to net present value, and you're doing the same at Cassiar. And it's very true. You know, in the ground valuation for Cassiar right now is $29 an ounce, Jorge. $29 an ounce.
That was incredible.
That's why I own 7.5 million shares of Cassiar. That's why I've never sold one share of Cassiar. And I continue to buy Cassiar. I'm a huge believer. Identical to Cote. Never took a bonus in cash. All shares. Participated in every financing at IAMGOLD. And when I retired from IAMGOLD, I was the largest independent shareholder. And I was proud of it. Same at Cassiar. And I believe Cassiar is in a phenomenal position to take off. And I'm going to tell you right now, the closest thing to cash flow right now at Cassiar is Cassiar South. High grade, narrow veins, a mill that can be refurbished, all the road structures that are in place. The tailings pond is there and operative, and Korshak's right there. And we do have people, without naming names, we do have people looking at investing in Cassiar South and looking to bring that particular deposit into a cash flow status within the next 2 years. And at $5,000, $4,500 gold, 100,000 ounces gives you $400 million. We're trading, our market cap, Jorge, is 75. So the math is very compelling. I'm excited about the work Marco Roca's doing. We have a great team. Michael Woods, our CFO. We have a great VP Geology, Joe Maxwell. We just have a great team there. And Tyler Rice has done a great job for us on the First Nations. We have an excellent relationship with the First Nations. Again, almost identical to what we saw at Cote. We're on the ground. We walk the property. I go up there regularly. And it's just a very attractive investment opportunity for anybody who thinks that gold prices are going to at least stay at this level or go higher. And by the way, I think they're going higher.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And very impressive at IAMGOLD that you have. Well, number one, I was just reading you've done, since you took over the company in 2019, you've done 66,000 meters of drilling. And I did want to touch on the fact that, as you said, something like 95% of the drill holes we've done have hit mineralization, and the resource is practically doubled. But it does seem like there's a lot of exploration potential, because of the size of the district.
It's massive. It's the same size as Cote, identical. It's 60,000 hectares. It's 150,000 acres that is fully permitted with 170 kilometers of roadways. I mean, like a lot of companies, when they go into a region, have to spend an enormous amount of capital to build the roads, to build the infrastructure around core shacks, camps, power lines. We didn't have to spend any of that money. All of the money we raised went into the ground. And as you say, 66,000 meters. And that doesn't include the meters that we have historically that were drilled previously. And 300,000 ounces of gold were produced out of those narrow veins in 2008, 2009, and prior. So this thing, we got 7 adducts. We've got access to some very, very high potential veins there. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that, hey, you hit one of these veins and you're able to bring down, pick a number, 70 to 100,000 ounces of gold. you pay off everything and more.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about this drilling season, which has been lined up. I'm excited about our team. I'm excited about the potential of having investors come in and help us build this towards a net present value that's going to be very attractive for Cassiar shareholders.
Yeah, I know, and you were seeing it, with companies that, go from, let's say, where we're now to, adding a little bit more certainty to the ounces, perhaps having, a pilot plant or some production where, the market cap doubles, triples, or quadruples. It's not hard to see how that could happen, at Cassiar for sure. Well, one of the things that we thought would be interesting also to hear from you is, a lot of people are looking at our sector and at companies like Cassiar from the perspective of, you know, M&A, because a lot of people think, and I think even for the entrepreneur, for the investors, you put your money in a company like Cassiar on the expectation that you can build something that eventually will be attractive to a mid-tier or a major. Or of course, we've seen this happen in Canada with companies like Pretium. They went straight into production with their current management, and eventually did get acquired, but after they went into production. But just from that perspective, Steve, where do you see the M&A market now? We just had a big high-profile acquisition merger between Equinox and Orla. We've had a few high-profile M&A situations in the last year. But just touching on how unique Cassiar is in sort of that pool of available assets, like where do you see the current M&A market and where Cassiar Gold fits in that whole picture?
Well, you know some of the math as well as I do, Jorge. The world produces about 120 million ounces of gold every year, right? And about somewhere between 3,600 tons and 5,000 tons. And the demand for gold with the central banks and with the fiats being under tremendous pressure, the US is now approaching 40 trillion of balance sheet debt with another 100 trillion of off balance sheet debt to give it a value, to give it a overall debt that is higher than their GDP, way higher. So we're seeing the US dollar come under a lot of pressure. We're seeing the Chinese and the Russians move away from the US dollar, and Trump seems to be doing everything he can to weaken the dollar. As that dollar weakens, and we will get interest rates coming down, because I don't see how the economy sustains this level of inflation for a long time without seeing some kind of hurt. You're going to see gold prices move north, because the demand for gold is not going to go away, it's going to increase. So to answer your question, how many deposits like Cassiar can you find in North America? I don't know of too many, especially
Yeah.
ones that are located off a main highway with full power access, 170 kilometers of road, and the ability to basically move it into production at a very quick rate. There are very few of those like that. And,
Yeah.
Africa has become less attractive. I mean, I spent 10 years in Africa, you know this. I don't need eight
Yeah.
bodyguards at Cassiar.
Yeah.
When I flew into Africa, I went to Mali, Burkina Faso, I had 8 bodyguards.
Yeah.
When I go to Cassiar, I don't need any bodyguards. I drive in there with my pickup truck and we go to work. So we
Yeah.
don't spend any money on security. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's a friendly jurisdiction where somebody somewhere is going to wake up and say, holy mackerel, look at this thing. As they move towards 5 million ounces, why wouldn't I want that? I think we're so undervalued that I'd like to see us see some appreciation before we get anywhere down the road with any mid-tier. I
Yep.
think you're going to see that though, Jorge, because if we can prove up on Cassiar South the ability to produce cash flow in the near term, all of a sudden the bulk
Yeah.
tonnage part, Cassiar North, becomes multiples of attraction.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, and we just did a private financing basically for 5.5 million through with a flow through wrapper on it. We saw about $2 million worth of warrant uh, exercised. We're in a good cash position. We have a great program. Jill's put together a great program. Um, I'm sitting back again, participating, helping, but watching this with a keen eye because, again, when you're valued at $29 an ounce in the ground, it literally doesn't make any sense. So somebody's going to wake up and say, whoa, wait a minute. This thing's worth a lot more. And we've seen a lot more interest in our company from the US. Like 30% of our investors now, of our shareholders, are in the
Yeah.
US. That was literally zero
Yeah.
2 years ago. Literally zero. So I think people are waking up and they're saying to themselves, hey, institutions, 30%. We didn't have any institutions invested in us. So institutions, US investors, hopefully Asian investors. And you know this with IAMGOLD, of the 400 million shares at IAMGOLD, 70 million were in your part of the world.
Yeah.
And they made good money. So I'm hopeful that as people learn more and more about this opportunity, they'll start buying shares and investing in the company. And I guarantee you, I'm going to stand tall and I'm going to hold my shares just like I did at IAMGOLD until we see this thing through.
Yeah, I know it's going back to what you were saying about you were asking how many companies with this kind of resources and location. It's definitely not too many.
No,
The other thing to maybe to mention to people, Steve, is that I think a lot of people. I think in Canada there are probably like a dozen companies with a similar size resource, but some of them, we are in British Columbia, but we are not in a remote location. I think some of the resources bases that are sort of similar size to us, yes, they're in BC or on the Yukon, but there's significantly more remote. I think that part is something that it's hard to sort of imagine, but in the case of Cassiar, you get to the airport and you go straight on the main highway
yeah,
south, and the project is like literally the core shack is 100 meters from that highway.
yeah. No, I mean, you land in Whitehorse and you travel on a paved, it's the Alaska Highway, south.
Mm,
Highway 37 south. You drive for 5 hours, you turn off the highway, you're in the camp. And you just don't find that uh, literally anywhere. And
yeah,
other than what we saw at Cote. And again, uh, it's something that is very difficult to show people because unless they come to the site, which they're welcome to, by the way, it's hard to comprehend. But Essakane at IAMGOLD, we had 140 military at the site.
mm,
We had 20 special ops living at the site. You would have to fly to Ouagadougou, which was 17 and a half hours, and then fly by plane for 3 hours to Essakane. And we had a bus everybody in from the city. Like you can't compare Cassiar to anything like that. Cassiar, you
mm,
can build a camp. Cassiar is near multiple towns. Cassiar has all the water it needs. Cassiar has all the power it needs. Cassiar has the ability to produce gold very, very quickly within the next 2 years and move the gold off the site without any challenges whatsoever. So there are many, many options at Cassiar. As I say, I think at some point people are going to wake up and say, wait a minute, we're producing far more than what we're replacing. We're not replacing our reserves worldwide. Russia's a non-starter. Africa, many places in Africa, non-starter. Challenges in South America. Why wouldn't you come to a very friendly jurisdiction like Northeast BC, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think with the geopolitics, particularly over the last couple of years, even more so.
Yeah, absolutely is right. So I'm hopeful that, 13% of our shareholders are management. I'm half of that. And we have very strong participation by Marco Roque, our CEO, Jill Maxwell, Tyler Rice. Our management team is extremely active. They believe in the company. They have a lot of skin in the game. They've participated in every financing, Jorge, as I have.
Yes.
So, look, I think the best indication of whether you believe in something is if you put your money where your mouth is. And our management team has done that. So, as I said, every opportunity I get, I buy shares. And my daughters own shares, my son-in-laws own shares. When my mother and father were alive, they owned shares. The whole Letwin family owns shares in this company because they also own shares in IAMGOLD, and it changed their lives. It changed their lives. So I don't know what more I can tell you other than take a hard look at this. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer it. But I just think this is a splendid opportunity for people to get in now because, your point is well taken. You literally will wake up one morning and this thing will be north of $1.
Yeah, exactly.
That is what's going to happen. And then after that, I don't know where it's going to go. But I remember at IAMGOLD, it just took off. And every quarter that went by, the thing was moving up, not 3 or 4%, 10 to 15%. It just took off. So people get on the bandwagon and it'll move the stock. So I have every belief that this thing is going to move up quickly. And it's a good opportunity for friends and family to get in now.
Fantastic. I think this is a perfect way to end our conversation, Steve. Again, thank you very much for taking the time. And, if anybody has any questions, please do send us a message if you have a question now. You can type it on the software for the platform, and then we'll take a quick second to see if anybody has a question. And otherwise, again, thank you, Steve, for your time. And if anybody's interested in finding more about Cassiar Gold, they have a very good website, but they also have very active presence in social media where Marco Roque, the CEO, has shared in quite a bit of detail different aspects of the company that you might find interesting.
And Jorge, I want to just add one more thing.
Yeah.
We are completing our metallurgical study in anticipation of having a preliminary economic assessment done by the fall. Ausenco, our good friends at Ausenco are doing that. We're not bluffing. We're not kidding around. We are serious about bringing this mine into production. We are spending the money necessary to assess the net present value of this company in a scientific, mathematical way, backed by third parties. We are 43-101 compliant, and we have active interest in refurbishing the mill and bringing gold into production sooner rather than later. So once again, there will be milestones here where people will see what this thing actually looks like. And we're serious about it, or we wouldn't be spending the money to get that work done.
Great, great. Oh, here's a quick question here. Steve, comment first. I love hearing Steve brag about being the top shareholder. It's very encouraging. How confident are you that the results from the PEA will keep the momentum going forward?
100%.
Great. Great. Okay, well, I think that's all the questions we have. And Steve, again, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you in person in this part of the world.
I'm coming to see you, buddy.
Year next. And have a great evening over there. And everybody here in Asia, have a great rest of the day. We'll be sending this webinar by email. So feel free to share with other investors who might be interested. Thank you very much, Steve, and thank you, everyone.